A man was just late to a job fair. But what was waiting for him wasn't just a table, it was a kindness he'd done 16 years earlier. And in that moment, his whole life changed. Because some doors only open for those who arrive late. When Adam Becker finally left the chaos of the morning behind and rushed into the parking lot, the digital clock read 10:47. The paper folder in his hands had come from his kid's old cartoon file, the one they'd used for years. Inside, there was only one thing. The resume he'd printed in a hurry at the library that morning. There was a coffee stain on it, the corners were bent, and Adam had pinned all his last hopes on that resume. That morning, as he set out for the job fair, he'd noticed a young woman whose car had broken down. She was pulled over by the side of the road, looking helpless, waiting for someone to help. Racing against time, Adam chose to turn back and help her. He lifted the hood, tried to figure out what was wrong, and managed to get the car started pretty quickly. The look in the woman's eyes, a mix of surprise and gratitude, was still stuck in his mind. "There really are good people out there," she'd said, her voice trembling. Adam had just nodded and walked away without saying anything. But helping her had made him late. Maybe, once again, he'd end up going home empty-handed. The wide glass doors with metal frames were still open, but the life inside had faded. The buzz of the crowd had been replaced by folded tablecloths, rolled-up banners, and bored staff making small talk. When Adam stepped inside, no one even looked up. His footsteps echoed in the hall, and with every step, his hopes faded a little more. He held onto the folder even tighter. He was looking for a table, a chance. But most of the tables were already abandoned, the reps packing up their bags. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, he heard a voice. It was a woman's voice, a little breathless, with a mix of teasing and warmth. "You're late." Adam turned toward the sound. In the corner of the hall, there was one last table still standing. Behind it, a simple banner, Linden and Company, Social Enterprises. The woman behind the table was wearing a dark navy blazer and holding a clipboard. Her eyes looked familiar, but Adam couldn't place her. Not until she spoke. "I've been waiting since 2009. Adam's heart tightened. As his brain tried to process those words, he found himself frozen in place. Slowly, he walked closer. The woman was graceful, not showing her age. Her eyes weren't harsh, just determined. The way she stood showed a confidence that comes with experience. Unlike Adam, life hadn't pushed her around, she had shaped her own life. "Sorry, I don't recognize you," Adam said carefully. She smiled. 2009, the snowstorm. Your rusty red pickup truck. My car wouldn't start. No signal, no cell service. You stopped. It didn't even take 10 minutes. But for me, it meant 10 years. A picture flashed in Adam's mind. A young woman, shivering behind the wheel in a thin jacket. Her child had a high fever that night. But Adam just couldn't keep driving. He'd quickly grabbed the cables, jump-started her battery, and left without saying goodbye. He'd forgotten that night so many times. But she hadn't. "You're that woman," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," she replied, reaching out her hand. "My name's Laura. I'm the project director at Linden and Company. I'm one of the people who organized this fair." Adam's face was a mix of exhaustion and surprise. "I'm just a mechanic. My resume's not impressive. I worked in the same shop for 8 years, but it closed last month. Now I just have a bunch of short-term gigs, nothing steady." Laura nodded. "I don't read resumes. I don't look at who people are. I look at who they could become. And in 2009, I saw who you were." Adam felt a lump in his throat. All these years, no one had ever seen what this woman saw. He reached out his hand again, and they shook. It didn't last long, but it meant everything. "Come tomorrow morning," Laura said. "We're starting a new project, teaching mechanics to young people, helping them find their way. We need someone like you. We're not looking for suits, we're looking for heart." Adam's voice was almost a whisper. "Okay, I'll come." Laura smiled. "But don't be late this time, okay?" As Adam walked outside, he looked up. The sky was gray, but there was a spark inside him. Maybe some things aren't late, they're just right on time. And sometimes a woman saying, "I've been waiting since 2009, is all it takes to start a whole new life. The next morning, for the first time in years, Adam woke up before his alarm. When he opened his eyes, he didn't just stare blankly at the ceiling. He sat up and put on the jeans he'd left at the edge of the bed. There was something different about this morning, an uncertain but restless feeling inside him. Maybe it was excitement, maybe fear. Or maybe it was just something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. His daughter Emma wasn't awake yet. That morning, he went into the kitchen, toasted 2 slices of bread, ate one with his coffee, and wrapped the other in a paper napkin to put in his pocket. He still felt that familiar tightness in his chest, the "I'm not enough" feeling, the weight of having worked for years and gotten nowhere. But Laura's words were etched in his mind. "I don't read resumes." Yesterday's job fair could have been just another disappointment for him. But now with an invitation, the course of his life had changed. And this time, the person in front of him wasn't investing in his weaknesses, but in his humanity. When he arrived at the address, it was exactly 8:55. When he got out of his red truck, the folder pressed to his chest didn't mean much anymore. Instead, the toast in his pocket felt more important. Effort, simplicity, a new beginning. The building was low, wide, and looked like an old repair shop. There was a sign out front, Linden and Company, Rebuild Program. As he stepped inside, there was a quiet kind of energy in the place. Motor schematics on the walls, half-dismantled lawnmowers on the floor, toolboxes in the corners. He could hear the buzz of young people. Some were studying an engine block, some were trying to wipe oil off their jackets with greasy hands. And right in front of him, at a desk sorting files, was Laura. She looked up and smiled. "I like that you're on time." Adam smiled back lightly. "I guess I'm making up for always being late." Laura got up from her desk, stuck her pen behind her ear, and walked over to show him around. "This is your stage. Most of the kids here have been pushed aside by the system, labeled, written off. But engines teach them something. Patience, balance, honesty. And someone like you is the right person to share those things." Right at that moment, a voice called out, "I broke the screw again." One of the kids inside, about 17, named Lucas, walked over showing the stripped head of a screw after another failed attempt at taking apart an engine. Laura smiled. "You came just in time. Go ahead, jump in." A bit surprised, a bit cautious, Adam walked over to where the screw was. He bent down, checked out the engine, and touched the broken screw with his finger. "This isn't just a screw," he said quietly, but Lucas heard him. "It's a lesson that comes from impatience." "What do you mean?" Lucas said, a little defensive. Adam kept his eyes on the engine block. "If you get impatient, you end up breaking either the parts or trust. It doesn't matter if it's trust in yourself, in someone else, or in the machine. Every screw takes time." Lucas nodded, and for the first time, he was silent. Adam picked up a screwdriver, worked it slowly, and managed to get the broken screw out. For a moment, there was a little silence inside the shop. Some of the kids were watching. Nobody clapped, but they all saw it. A man had fixed something broken. For the rest of the day, Adam didn't work without breaking a sweat. His hands got covered in grease. He wiped the sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. But he didn't complain, because with every part he took apart, it felt like he was figuring out a bit more of his own past. Broken machines have a language, sure, but broken lives speak too, if someone knows how to listen. In the afternoon, Laura came over again. She had 2 paper cups of coffee in her hands. She handed him one. "I'm watching you. You're teaching, but you're also learning." Adam took a sip of coffee. "Maybe, for the first time, I'm in the right place." Laura nodded. "Maybe stopping to help that woman with her car didn't just change her life, it changed yours too." Right then, Adam remembered that night years ago, little Emma burning up with fever, and he needed to get home to her. But he'd stopped to help. He'd carried the weight of that choice for years. Now he understood. Maybe that decision was the first nail in rebuilding his own life. At the end of the day, Adam took off his gloves. The calluses on his hands weren't just carrying the exhaustion of years, they now carried the strength of a new beginning. He turned to Laura and asked, "What time do you want me here tomorrow?" Laura looked him straight in the eye. "I know you belong here now. Whenever you come, your spot's waiting." Adam nodded. When he stepped outside, the sky had darkened. The wind was cool, but for the first time in years, he didn't feel cold inside. Because, just like some engines, some lives just need the right touch. A week later, everything was the same, but everyone had changed. The old walls inside the workshop were still cracked, the engines were still greasy, and the toolboxes were still missing pieces. But the way people walked was different now. The kids stood a little taller. And Adam Becker, he wasn't just a temporary instructor anymore. He had quietly become a cornerstone. Every morning, he'd show up with his coffee and pause for a second before walking in. The building was still the same, but the weight inside Adam was slowly lifting. The life he used to always be late for was now moving at his pace. The workshop wasn't just fixing engines anymore, it was fixing people's faith, too. That morning when he walked in, Lucas and 3 other kids were gathered around a table. On the table was a minibus engine rusty, a mess, the kind nobody wanted to touch. One of the kids, Alina, was gripping a screwdriver tightly but couldn't bring herself to move. Adam walked over. "Why'd you stop?" he asked. Alina looked away. "I'm scared of messing up. My dad always said I was too afraid of breaking things." Adam crouched down, meeting her at eye level. "People break things, but if you learn how to fix them, you won't break them the same way again." He took the screwdriver, gently turned and positioned it, then handed it back. "Now you try." Alina hesitated, but this time she turned it. The screw turned. There was a little cracking sound. It wasn't the engine, it was Alina's fear breaking. Lucas, standing behind her, quietly muttered, "Nice job." Adam stepped away, but his eyes stayed on the kids. Watching them was like watching his younger self. Every one of them had once been seen as not enough by others, but inside, they had huge potential. Their silence was just like the quiet he'd carried inside himself for years. That afternoon, Laura came in again. She had 2 people with her, a man in a gray suit, his face set in polite boredom, and a young woman constantly taking notes on her laptop. The moment Adam saw them, he felt uneasy. The room suddenly had the smell of bureaucracy. Laura introduced them. "These people are here to review our financial sustainability. You decide what they see." All day, they walked around the workshop, talked to the kids, but all their questions were surface level. How many engines have been fixed? What's the attendance rate? What's your estimated ROI? Adam understood the words, but not the meaning. What was being measured here wasn't profit, it was character. With a single screw, you could earn trust. With an engine, you could restart a life. After the visitors left, Adam quietly walked over to Laura. "They'll never understand what we do here." Laura gave a tired smile. "But we have to explain it, because they don't speak any other language." Adam nodded. "Then let's speak a language they understand. Not with data, but with values." That evening, when Adam got home, Emma was waiting for him. She said she'd left a letter for him in the little kitchen. Adam opened it. Inside was an old drawing, something Emma had made when she was little, a big man holding a wrench, standing next to an engine. On top, it said, "My dad fixes everything." Adam's eyes filled with tears. In that moment, he realized that every little thing he'd fixed for other people over the years was really helping fix the broken pieces inside himself, too. But most importantly, Emma still saw him as the fixer. And maybe he was finally earning that title again. The next morning, when he got to the workshop, the kids were waiting for him at the door. Lucas had a folder in his hands, and Alina came up to him with a new spark in her eyes. "We were thinking last night," she said. "Maybe we're not just learning this job. Maybe we're telling its story, too." "Telling it?" Adam asked. Lucas nodded. "We're working on a presentation. If the board comes back, we'll talk to them not just with numbers, but with what we've lived. With our stories." A smile spread across Adam's face. This was the real investment. Stories that couldn't be measured by numbers, but echoed in the heart. And in that moment, he understood. Everyone here had more than just an engine inside, they had a spark. And maybe, lighting that spark was the biggest fix of all. A few days later, there was a tension in the air at the workshop. The kids were working, yes, but their hands moved a little slower, their voices were a bit quieter. Adam noticed it right away. Something had happened. Or maybe something was about to happen, slowly closing in over them. Laura had come in early that morning. She was making phone calls, shuffling through documents, and now and then staring off into space, her eyebrows furrowed. When Adam approached her, she lowered her head a little and quietly handed him a folder. "This is the first draft of the closure decision," she said, swallowing hard. "The board doesn't think the project is scalable enough. The numbers aren't what they want." Adam took the folder. The paper looked ordinary, but every word pointed to the end of a dream. "They never even came here," Adam said in a low voice. Laura closed her eyes. "Yeah, a decision made 2,000 kilometers away. They didn't look us in the eye, didn't shake our hands. They erased us with numbers." The kids inside didn't really know the details yet, but they could feel it. The tension was cutting through the air. That day, during lunch break, Adam gathered all the kids. He didn't talk in management speak or try to sell them hope. He just spoke as a man. I know it feels like something's wrong. And you're right, he said. But here's what you need to know: these walls might close. This door might get locked, but no one can take away the skill in your hands, the ideas in your head, or the courage in your heart. Just then, Alina spoke up. But we were just getting started. That's exactly why this isn't an ending, Adam said. It's just a change in direction. And I want to leave each of you with a start, so you can keep going. The next afternoon, when the kids came in, they found something special on their tables. Personal toolkits prepared for each one of them. Inside were basic repair tools, simple guides, and most importantly, a handwritten note. Adam had written to each student, one by one. But the thing that stood out most was a little key. Engraved on it was a single sentence: "You are valuable." Miguel, one of the most rebellious, quiet students, stared at his key for a long time. Then he came over to Adam. "When I got this, it hurt," he said. "Because nobody's ever shown me that something I hold in my hand could say something about me." Adam looked him in the eyes. "Your hands fix machines, but your words can fix hearts, too." That night, when the workshop closed, Laura came in holding a box. She took out a framed photo. It was a shot of Adam at the engine, showing something to the kids. There was a little plaque attached. Adam Becker, the man who fixed not just engines, but hope. Adam was silent for a moment. "I'm not hanging that up at my house," he said. Laura looked up. "Why not?" Adam glanced around. He pointed at the main wall of the workshop. "It should stay on this wall. This place is my home." The photo was hung right at the center of the workshop, above the tool cabinet. That night was quiet, but this time the silence wasn't restless, it was respectful. The kids came one by one and stood in front of the wall. Some were silent, some touched the photo, but none of them took this goodbye lightly. The next morning, when Adam got to the workshop, he found a note at the entrance. It was stuck to a cardboard box with a single sentence spray painted on it: "You gave us our hands back. Thank you." Adam stood by the box for a while when he saw it. He didn't say anything. He just opened the box and took out the only thing inside: a broken ignition coil. Written on it in pen was, "Sometimes a broken part is valuable too, because inside, it holds hope that can work again." That afternoon, Adam put on his gloves and cleaned an engine in the empty workshop, all by himself. No one was watching, but he wasn't doing it to be seen. He wasn't part of the system anymore, he was the subject of a movement. And that night, when Laura came over, she only said one sentence: "I have a new plan. Smaller, freer, but if you're not in, it's not complete." Adam thought for a long time. Then he looked her in the eyes. "This time, I'm not just going to be the guy who helps. I'll be right there with you." The new workshop, it wasn't as big as the old one, and rain still leaked in through the roof. But this time, everyone who came there knew exactly why they were there. No one had been forced to come. No one was just there for attendance. The kids who had nothing but their pasts in their hands had come to start over. And the first person to open the door, once again, was Adam Becker. Laura's smaller but freer project had started in an old municipal storage building. 2 tables bought with donations, a box of rusty engine parts, and a coffee maker. But there was something inside, a kind of energy you couldn't see, but you could feel. It was as if this place was going to fix not just machines, but people too. On the first day, Adam didn't make a speech. Instead, he put a lawn mower in the middle of the room, set it on the bench, and said, "Who wants to start?" In that moment, one of the new kids, Sarah, stepped forward without even raising her hand. Her hair was messy, her clothes were secondhand, but her eyes were determined. "Is there a screwdriver?" she asked. Adam silently handed her a screwdriver. And when Sarah touched the engine for the first time, the group behind her all took a deep breath. Because at that moment, everyone understood. Here, it wasn't making mistakes that mattered, it was not trying at all that was the real loss. Miguel, one of the old crew, was now coming in as a volunteer on weekends. He had learned that when you help others, you end up helping yourself the most. While Adam was working with him in a corner, he quietly asked, "Why do you do this? You still come, you help out. No one's making you." Miguel paused for a moment. Then he bent down, picked up a rusty ignition cable, and said, "Because I found my voice here. I never want to lose it again." Adam didn't say anything to that, because there was something beyond words in what Miguel had said. Like the sacredness of the moment when a kid who's found his voice decides never to be silent again. At the end of the day, Adam was left alone in the workshop. After washing his hands, he noticed an empty space on the wall. Something was missing. A mark. Then he pulled a small envelope from his inside pocket. Inside was that cartoon Emma had drawn as a child, the man fixing an engine. No frame, no colors, but real. He hung it there. Underneath, he wrote one line in pen. My daughter thought I was a hero, so I learned to act like one. The next day, Laura came in with a flyer in her hand. Another new idea, spreading to local high schools. Small workshops. More lives. Adam laughed. Aren't you ever going to get tired? Laura looked him straight in the eyes. When you got my car running in the snow, you didn't just jump my battery, you jump-started my way of thinking. None of my decisions are just mine anymore. They're about us. Adam nodded. He reached into his pocket and took out a small object. A tiny key, engraved on it. The best fixers are the best listeners. I made this for you, he said. Laura took the key and squeezed it tight between her fingers. You're not just fixing the past with me. Adam, you're fixing the future, too. That afternoon, for the first time, the kids started preparing their own presentations. Sarah, Miguel, and the others weren't just at the engines, they were at computers, poster boards, and with markers in hand. Because now, it wasn't just about screwdrivers, they needed words, too. What are we going to talk about? Someone asked. Adam answered, yourselves. Who you are, who you want to be, and what's changed in this place. Sarah looked up. So we'll talk about hope, not just engines. That night, Adam opened a notebook at home. This time, he didn't write to Laura or Emma. This time, it was for himself. A single sentence. I'm not someone who was late. I arrived right on time. Then he closed the notebook, and before turning off the light, he looked at the drawing on the wall one more time. And this time, he didn't just look like a hero, he started to feel like one. Months later, the new project grew faster than anyone expected. The small workshop led to other workshops like dominoes. Each one was small, but each one was powerful. It wasn't just engines that were getting started up, the resilience inside the young people was being fired up too. And in every new center, there was a shared mark, a wall filled with sentences written in pen, every line a first try, every mark a transformation. But for Adam, these successes were more than flashy headlines. For him, the biggest change was rebuilding the man inside himself. Now he was fixing not just engines, but lives. And for the first time, he was going to have a seat at the decision table. It was a big meeting day. In a large hall, local government representatives, private donors, and education experts had gathered. Entrepreneurs, presentations, graphs. Everything was going as it should. But the most anticipated speaker in the room wasn't an academic or a CEO. As Adam Becker walked toward the microphone, he put his hands in his pockets. Same flannel shirt, same striped jeans. But his walk had changed. Years ago, after walking into a job fair with his head down, this time his head was held high. He didn't have to prove himself to anyone anymore because he'd already proven himself thousands of times in the field. He grabbed the microphone. He was silent for a few seconds. Then his voice came out, clear and slow. I'm Adam. I'm a mechanic. Nothing more. But sometimes, fixing things isn't just about engines. Sometimes, you fix a perspective, a young person, a life. The room was silent. Every face was attentive. Today, I'm not going to give you statistics. Instead, I'm going to tell you about Sarah. She'd been expelled from school, thought she was useless. Then one day, we put a screwdriver in her hand. Now, she runs her own school's tech club. A photo of Sarah appeared on the screen, her hands covered in grease, but her smile was bright. I'll tell you about Miguel. He was quiet. He didn't trust anyone. Now he's a volunteer instructor teaching 10 kids every week. Another photo, Miguel, wearing a cap, showing students how to take apart a carburetor. These are our statistics. This is the language we speak. The language of healing. The language of trying. The language of those who aren't afraid to lose. Then Adam turned to the slide behind him. This time, a simple drawing appeared. The picture Emma had drawn as a child. Underneath, in big letters, it said, My dad fixes everything. A quiet buzz rose in the hall. People were quietly wiping their eyes. And then a woman stood up. It was Laura. She undid her jacket button, let her arms fall to her sides, and said just one sentence. Some people don't just fix engines, they fix humanity, too. In that moment, the hall broke out in applause. Adam didn't shrink away. In the middle of the applause, he turned off the microphone and stepped down from the stage. Because for him, the real work was never about the stage, it was always about the field. That evening, Adam opened his notebook in his kitchen. This time, the pages were full. Letters to Laura, to Emma, to Sarah, to Miguel. Hundreds of lines he'd written to himself. But this time, he wrote just one line. The single line that summed up the whole story. I was never late. I always arrived right on time. Then he went outside, walked in the cool of the night. The sky was cloudless. The stars looked down quietly at him. One hand holding coffee, the other hand in his pocket clutching the small key. You are valuable. And in that moment, Adam Becker understood some journeys don't start by being late to a job fair. They start by arriving right on time in someone's life. The story ends here, but those who leave a mark never really end.